Hi, my name is Ashley, and this is my smart financial assistant. It's called a Budget Buddy, and the reason why I created this was to help users, particularly in this context, students manage their finances better by making better financial decisions. Um, so what it does is it analyzes the user's transactions and it outlines its spending habits. And not only does it calculates and analyzes the spending habits, it also provides personalized messages as well as um, recommendations on how the user can make better financial decisions. So talking about my architecture of my program, what I did was I used a single file notebook on Google Colab to create my program. I did everything on this one notebook. I included the 6-step methodology where I included the understanding problem, the inputs, outputs, the calculations, as well as the pseudocode, so I can understand how to write my code and all the inputs and outputs and what it's going to generate. The Python logic as well as the testing. And the reason why I decided to include this all in one single file and one notebook on Google Colab was so that everything was together and then I wasn't losing components. But reflecting back, I do realize that if I were to make this a larger project on a bigger scale, it would probably be more useful and better for me to use multiple notebooks, multiple files, different modules to display this. This way, I can separate the different functions, the different logic into different sections, such as like the testing, as well as the analyzing the spending and the different calculations all into one. That way it's all separate. This makes it easier to debug and to decode as well, in case if there was any errors that's happening, you know it's happening specifically in this section. So when designing my project, I included 3 key components. These three components are a function to clean the CSV file, a function to calculate and analyze the spending, as well as a function to create a custom tool, which is like a chat integration as well as a affordability tracker. So I integrated that within my Gradio, but prior to this, I initially tested this through the top of my notebook where I tested it individually and then the logic of the code and then refined it further to integrate it within the Gradio. But the reason why I decided to keep the logic in here was because that it helped me understand that by creating them into functions, I was able to create different responsibilities and reuse the different functions specifically for a task. And I found that creating functions made it easier for me to test as well as to debug and maintain the code as well. So the first function that I created was to clean the CSV file, clean the data transactions. So what this function does is it cleans the data by removing the hidden spaces, removing symbols, it removes invalid data, it removes the dollar signs. It converts the data type into the right format, which is like floats or strings. It also removes like errors and any duplicates as well. And the reason why I turned this into a function was because it was one of the most important parts of my program. And by turning it into a function, it was easier to manage and alter and debug because that way I didn't have to rewrite the code again every time a new CSV file is uploaded. So the second key component I developed was a function called analyze spending. So this is integrated within my Gradio, but before this function, I first tested this through separate cells in my sections on the top of my notebook, and the reason why I did this was to verify my logic before I integrated it within Gradio. And this is known as one of the main functions of my application because it uses the clean data that we did previously in my previous function and turns it into useful financial insights for the user. When testing my logic, I split them up into different sections where one is to calculate the total spending, one is to analyze the spending and the refund counts, one is to calculate the total percentage within the different categories. So I split them all up into different logics, and I use different Python concepts such as conditional statements such as if, elif, and else statements to produce different messages and different recommendations based on the financial situation. For this section of my code, you can see that I use a for loop in conjunction with the conditional statements. And the reason why I chose to use a for loop in this situation was because a for loop moves through each category one at a time to perform the same calculation. So the reason why I use this was because there's a fixed amount of categories, and therefore it just moves to the next category to repeat the calculation instead of using a while loop, where a while loop has an unknown amount of data set, so it just keeps going until the user decides to exit or to end it. You can see here, this is another one of my logics that I tested out. In this particular code, I used group by to combine the transactions within the same category, and then I usually use the sum, the mean, and the count function concepts and principles to calculate this total spending, the average transaction, as well as the number of transactions. And this helps analyze the spending patterns and habits, and it gives a clear overview and summary of what's going on. Another key function that I developed is a custom tool called the affordability tracker. So what this does is it allows the user to interact with their spending analysis, and not only does it just display the spending analysis, but it also allows the user to gain personalized messages, feedback, and recommendation so that they can make better financial decisions. So it compares it against the recommended budget, and it helps, so it uses functions like the conditional statements, like the if, else, and elif, to help them create these personalized messages based on their financial situation. As you can see, this is one of my most significant design decisions that I made with my program, where I decided to create all of the logic on top of my notebook at the beginning, where I answered all the 6-step methodology questions, and then only then, after I finished testing and verifying that it produces the output that I wish to receive, then I integrated and turned it into different functions, that's when I integrated within my Gradio user interface. So I'm not going to have time to go through every single one of my code, but I have put my CSV in and run through the logic of this code. So this is the outputs that they're producing, and then this one is to group the transactions according to categories, and then those are the outputs, and then calculate the total average. So that's what it calculates, and then identify any high transactions, and then those are the outputs. I'm going to do a live demonstration of my Gradio, my application, so I'm just going to run that through. So that's just using all the different functions that I've created. Yep, so let's say my name is Malcolm, and then my recommended budget is $1,500, and then my financial goal is to make better financial decisions, and then I'm just going to upload my file, my Malcolm CSV, and then analyze spending. So it's giving me a summary. Hi Malcolm, personalized message. It says my total spending is this amount. My recommended budget, which is the one that I just entered, is $1,500, and my remaining budget is negative because I'm over my budget. So it's giving me a warning, and it's also giving me recommendations on reducing my spending and how I can do better, make better financial decisions. And then I can speak to a chat as well. I can say what was my total spending this month? Ask. So my total spending is this amount. I can also ask questions like, can you recommend me how I should save? So it gives me a personalized message that says, a good saving opportunity is to reduce spending in luxury, because my highest category is in luxury that I spend. And then there's another custom tool, which is, can I afford this? So you just put in what you want to buy. Let's say he wants to buy a helmet, and the purchase amount, say it's $300, and then you check the affordability, and it says it gives you a personalized message and warning saying, oh, if you've already gone over your budget by this amount of time, if you buy this helmet now, it's going to increase your spending and you're going to be overspending. So it recommends you to wait and save more money and focus on reducing your spending before you decide to make such a large purchase. So my project reads transaction data when a user uploads their CSV file into the application. So this particular line of code here, this one here, is what allows the user to select their CSV file and upload it into the software. And then this particular line of code here is what allows the software to read the data into the data frame, and that's when it allows the program to analyze the transactions and allows it to perform data cleaning. So what it does is it doesn't store the data permanently, but it stores it temporarily. So that means every time the user wants to upload a CSV file, and they have to upload a new CSV file to analyze a new set of transaction data. And because it doesn't store it permanently, what I would do in the future would consider implementing a data persistence. And what that is I could possibly store my transaction data through a database, or I could save the clean financial data of the CSV file separately once it's been cleaned. So at the bottom of my notebook, I have a section called the testing section. And what I did was I verified that my code works reliably through edge case testing. And the reason why I did this was so that it will check if there's any situations or any scenarios that may affect like the accuracy of my spending analysis. What it does, it could possibly check if there was any like missing descriptions, or if there's any like if any of the total spending is zero, of if any refunds exist. So in this code, what it does is it creates an empty list called edge cases, and it uses the if statements as well to check if an issue exists within the data. So if an issue is found or a problem is found, it will generate a message, and that will be added to the edge case list. And it would also generate like a warning or like a recommendation about that missing data. However, if nothing is found, it will print out a message that says no major edge cases found, and that your data is clean and is suitable for spending. So that verifies that there's no edge cases within the data. And I know that it works because if there was any specific issues that were found, they would give simple explanations as to like how to go about making the data clean and fixing the data before otherwise there's errors between the entire notebook. This also helps realize that the program is able to handle data that is not perfect, that is like authentic and realistic, rather than just perfect CSV files and transaction data that are like completely perfect. And not all transactions in real life are perfect, so this helps me test that they all work, even if there's missing data. So my function to clean the financial data is where most of my data processing occurs. So when a user uploads their CSV file into the data frame, it's raw transactional data. So it means that it's not yet clean. So once this function cleans the data, what it does is it removes any hidden spaces. It checks if any of the columns exist. It converts the amounts into the correct data types, into strings or into floats. It converts them into the right format. It also cleans the data names and removes any invalid rows or any duplication of transactions. So the reason why I decided to show this part of the code for one of the biggest transformations is because the function for cleaning the CSV file is one of the most important parts of the code, of the program, because if the data is still raw and there's like invalid information, or there's the data types are not converted to the right data types, then there will be an error, and it won't be able to proceed to the next function, which is to analyze the spending or to generate any of the calculations and produce any of the recommendations or personalized messages. So the function for cleaning the data is one of the most important and one of the biggest transformations within my project. And it also makes it make the data reliable for when it analyzes the transaction. So when it moves on to the function of analyzing the spending, it makes it more reliable because the data is actually inputted there correctly, or there's like no missing information or like anything with the data.